Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You're hit by a car being driven by a minor. You go to confront him. Probably you want to speak to his parents as well. You probably want to scold the teenager. It is what any adult would do. I know I would do that. Now imagine this 16-year-old, the son of a cop, instead of being apologetic, simply steps onto the accelerator, knocks you down, and drags you till you are thrown to a distance. Just imagine if this was you or your parents or your spouse. You would be and you should be angry. But who would you be angry with? Who would you direct this anger to? The 16-year-old who was breaking the law and displaying zero sense of decency and responsibility? Or his parents for being irresponsible enough to let a minor drive? I ask you this, ladies and gentlemen, because this is exactly what has happened to Eliaz Kazmi. Kazmi, a film director, was on his scooty when all of a sudden an expensive SUV emerged out of nowhere and collided with his two-wheeler. Kazmi, just like anyone else, decided to confront this driver over his reckless driving. He approaches the vehicle. But what follows is on your screens. Just see. Nothing short of shocking. The SUV, which was being driven by a minor, attempted first to zoom away from the spot. This even as Kazmi tried to confront him. The pictures, shocking enough. Seconds later, Kazmi, who was stuck on the side of this SUV while attempting to stop it, got dragged underneath the vehicle and was then thrown meters away as this car speeds away from the spot. In the process, Kazmi has suffered grave injuries, including broken bones and blood clots. He's currently in ICU. The accused, who is not just a minor but also the son of a police officer, has been apprehended. He's been sent to a juvenile home and booked for attempt to murder. We spoke to Kazmi's brother in Jammu, where this incident has happened, and he's demanding the suspension of the teenager's father for letting him drive. Listen in.
जो नाबालग बच्चा किसी का भी हो, चाहे मेरा हो चाहे किसी का भी हो, अगर वो गाड़ी चलाते हुए किसी का एक्सीडेंट होता है, उसकी जिम्मेदारी माँ बाप पे होगी और उसकी सज़ा माँ बाप को मिलनी चाहिए। ये नाबालग बच्चा 16-17 साल का, 17 साल का, उसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि वो लोगों को, वहाँ पे लोगों ने मुझे बोला है कि इन बच्चों ने बहुत यहाँ पे वो तंग कर रखा हुआ है, इतनी फास्ट गाड़ियाँ चलाते हैं, ये सुनते नहीं किसी के। हमारा बाप डीएसपी है, वो है, ये डीएसपी का ये मतलब नहीं है कि राह चलते इंसान को किसी को भी कुचल देगा, कोई बोलेगा नहीं। तो मैं यही कहता हूँ डीजी साहब से कि इसको सस्पेंड करिए और इसको अरेस्ट करिए, इसके बाप को, क्योंकि इसने ना तो उसके पास लाइसेंस है और ना ही उसको गाड़ी चलाने का कोई हक है विदाउट लाइसेंस, और बाप ने उसको गाड़ी क्यों दी?
आपको लगता है कि उस मारने की कोशिश की गई?
बिल्कुल, ये अटेम्प्ट ऑफ मर्डर आप देख रहे हैं वीडियो में, हमारे पास तो सारी वीडियो हैं। मैं पुलिस वालों से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि कोई टेम्परिंग ना हो किसी चीज़ की भी, और ये इंसाफ हो, इंसाफ के साथ हम खड़े हैं। जो कानून इंसाफ करेगा वो हमें मंजूर है।
हमें इंसाफ चाहिए,
हमें इंसाफ चाहिए। मेरा भाई आज जिंदगी और मौत की लड़ाई लड़ रहा है, इन लोगों को कोई शर्म नहीं है।
Eliaz Kazmi, ladies and gentlemen, is a well-known media professional. He's a veteran ad filmmaker. His friends have launched a campaign on social media demanding justice for him. Amongst them is TV host and actor Mini Mathur, who is asking something that many of us are asking today. Is this how we are raising our next generation? In fact, Mini Menon is joining us on the broadcast. Mini Mathur is joining us on the broadcast. Thank you, Mini, for being with us. Vidya Tikari is Eliaz Kazmi's wife. She's with us as well. Vidya, I'm going to start with you and ask you how your husband is doing right now. Vidya, could you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry. He's very critical at the moment. He's got 3 blood clots in his brain, and it's very tough for us to decide whether or which day to airlift him into Delhi, because it's going to be something which is going to be very critical for Eliaz if we manage. So it's devastating.
Vidya, we've seen the pictures, we've seen the CCTV video. It's telling the story on its own, so I don't have to repeat for our viewers what exactly has happened. I want to ask you who you're angry with. Are you angry with this 16-year-old behind the wheel, or are you angry at his parents for letting him drive in the first place?
Of course, the parents, and that too, parents being policing Jammu and Kashmir. Like, how can he allow his son to attempt a murder on my husband? How is that possible? I just don't understand that. It's outright daylight murder, what the son did. So obviously, the parenting was definitely not there, for sure, or not the right parenting. So I don't know what the father's doing policing the state, honestly.
Vidya, did you manage to, you say your husband is critical. We've seen what has happened, but unfortunately, there is no audio in this CCTV footage that we have. Was your husband in a position to tell you what exactly had happened in terms of him going to the 16-year-old? What was the chat he was trying to have? Anything at all?
No, he's been unconscious since. He's on the ventilator, he's unconscious, and he's critical. So there's no chance of him even talking. So there's no conversation. We just got this information from the CCTV cameras.
And since has the police approached you at all? We know that the 16-year-old has now been sent to a juvenile home.
Yeah.
There's an attempt of murder charge against him. But has the police approached you, Vidya, at all?
They've approached the family. So they have been in talks with my brother-in-law and the extended family. I have just come in from Delhi, so I haven't spoken to the police myself, but I do know the boy has been apprehended. But I want to know what's going to happen now to the father. That's the big question.
It's only fair for your family to ask for the police, for the policeman to be suspended, because I mean, his job is to police. His job is to ensure that law is followed in the area that is under his jurisdiction. And here is his son breaking the law, illegally driving a vehicle and being irresponsible instead of being apologetic, simply trying to zoom away, in turn putting your husband in the situation that he is at the moment. Minu Mathur, would you want to come in? You've raised a point about parenting, whether this is the kind of generation that, that all of us are raising. What Eliaz did was something that any one of us would do. I would do it. I know that. You don't want to put this, you don't want to put this kid behind bars, but you definitely want to go and tell this kid, listen, you are not supposed to be behind the wheels. What you did is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. Let me speak to your parents. I'm assuming, we don't know yet, but I'm assuming that is exactly what Eliaz was trying to do.
So Shreya, we know Eliaz. I've been working with Eliaz for, for 25 years, and he happens to be Vidya's husband, who's one of my closest friends. So this is personal. And from what I can tell you, he's a gentle and a very, very mild-mannered person. And like you just said, if something like this happened to you, where a child, in an SUV collides at you, the thing you will do is get off and try and say, what are you doing? Where is your license? Are you old enough to drive? My concern here is not that I'm not here trying to say, this policeman needs to be arrested because, the guardians of the law are the ones who are allowing their children. My point is, what kind of belief systems are we bringing up our children with, and how toxic is this VIP culture that we are making the children who should actually be a step ahead in civic responsibility do something like this with so much rage and violence, with such impunity? It worries me that we are raising a generation of rage idiots. We are not giving them enough attention, and being from the guardian forces. This is completely unacceptable. How do you explain it to Elias's teenage children? How do you do this? How do you reconcile with something like this? And not just hitting his bike. You've dragged him. Look at the rage that you've rolled up your window. You've got his arm stuck in your car and you've driven half a kilometer and flung the guy and run off from the scene. Where is your humanity? What have you learned from your parents? It's so scary.
Many could have, you have kids as well, teenage kids as well. Could it have been a reaction out of fear?
Maybe, but you don't see. For example, out of fear, you will hit someone, and maybe if you're too young to know what's best for you, you would run. But you would not drag someone along for that long. You wouldn't. And if you realize that you have by mistake and not by intention, you would stop and you would help that person. You know how much you've damaged them. The fact that you can't be that dumb at 16. Come on, I have teenagers. They are very, very, very aware of their social responsibilities. It's just the VIP culture in this country that allows them that impunity. Ke mera baap mere ko sambhal lega, he'll get me out of this trouble. That is the problem with this VIP culture. Anyone else who has any kind of responsibility would have stopped and taken the poor chap to the hospital. It's scary, and it's almost I've been numb with.
That's the least you do.
Absolutely.
Vidya, can I just bring you back into this conversation? Is it your sense that the kid, had absolutely no fear with what he was doing because his father is from the police forces, that he had a sense of being protected irrespective of what happens?
Yeah, that absolutely. That's the mentality of a lot of these type of teenagers these days, who feel that they can rule the city because their father has a high posting. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. But even when he flung my husband off from his car, he couldn't even stop to help him and didn't even come back to see how he was. And then on top of that, nobody wanted to pick him up from the road, which was also horrific. So it's scary. Where does this end? It's just inhumane how our cities are turning out to be.
Cheap in this country. It's just so easy and no one gets booked for anything. So it's like, chalta hai, kuch nahi hoga. Dekh lenge. Nobody's picking up a guy who's been in an accident. And this is a guy with values, with a family, with an education, with a career. This is horrific. I'm not saying that people who don't have that have no value, but my God, how cheap is life in our country? And how stunned are we, and how
Vidya,
cynical are we that we would not help somebody on the road?
Absolutely.
Vidya, when you say no one on the road helped your husband, that there were people seeing what is happening, are you saying that there were people seeing what is happening and nobody would help him get to the hospital? Just tell me what happens after this. I mean, we've seen what we've seen on CCTV, but we don't know the story after that. Just tell us what happens after that.
So basically, no one was willing to take him into their car. So I think somebody had come along and just seen his last dialed number. So that person had dialed a friend of his, and she had to come all the way from wherever she was, and she got him put into her car by a person who was walking by. But no one was willing to put him into their car. So it was a friend who had to come to the rescue, to the location. So imagine that. Life is cheap.
And how much time would have lapsed between the accident and his friend arriving and taking him to hospital?
Sorry, time had lapsed. I don't know how long. I'm not aware of that. It may have been 5-10 minutes. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
So still, they've taken him to a private hospital.
That is a
and the
worry,
private
is it?
hospitals weren't taking him in. They said it's a police case, so it has to be a government hospital. So again, they had to shift him. It was just like so messy and horrible.
Okay, so this gets worse. This apathy gets worse. First, here is someone who's hit by a car. The person he's going to confront is a minor. The minor decides to drive off with your husband. Your husband is flung off. He's clearly bleeding. Yet there are bystanders who decide not to help him. Someone calls the last dialed number you're telling me, Vidya. A friend has to come all the way from wherever she came from to pick your husband up, take him to a hospital. She takes him up, she picks him up, takes him to the hospital, a private hospital, where they refuse to admit him despite his condition because it's an accident case, because it's a police case. Holy Lord. I just think to myself, we've become a nation of bystanders, Minnie.
Standards with no humanity. I'm sorry if I'm sounding extremist, but this is entirely personal. And then we have things like, oh, you can't, I mean, even if you can afford a private hospital, you can't go there because it's a police case. I mean, this is like, you are asking people, to just be on their own. There is absolutely no state support for this. What are these laws that you can't go to anything but a government hospital if this is a hit and run? You are taking away his chances. Maybe if he had been taken into picked up by some, man with humanity and taken to a hospital fast enough, he wouldn't be in the condition he is in today with clots in his brain and ruptured bones. And I mean, Vidya's in shock. She's not been able to explain to you. He's in a pretty bad state.
I hope he gets better. And I hope that the powers that be are seeing what has happened in Jammu to Eliaz, because we know that the Motor Vehicle Act needs to be strengthened. It needs to be made stricter when it comes to minors driving. Minors cannot drive. It is illegal. And parents are to be held responsible if a minor is behind a wheel. It's as simple as that. And if a minor is caught, like in Maharashtra, if they are, what you need to ensure is that before 25, they don't get a license. You need to put the fear of God into every minor who wants to drive a car.
Yeah,
we leave it there. Vidya, thank you very much for joining us. I know this is a...
If we make an example, I'm so sorry, I'm taking the last word. We need to make an example. Till the laws are not for the goose, for the gander, for the police, and for the common man, we will never fear it, because we will always find a loophole to get out of it. And as parents, we will always protect our younger people. So we need to make an example. We need justice for Eliaz. We need this kid book, the parents' book. And only when we set an example, we'll be able to put the fear of God in people who are just letting their kids drive all over the place.
Minnie, thank you very much for joining us. It was important to hear from you. And Vidya, thank you very much. I know this is a very tough time for you personally and for your family. And yet, you have joined us here on the show. So thank you very much. I hope your husband gets better. I seriously hope and I pray to God that he gets better. Thank you, ladies, for joining us.
Thank you, Shreya.
On that note, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. Thank you. There's much more coming up on the other side. There's a full-blown diplomatic war currently underway between India and Canada. It has seen a major escalation today. That story up next. Do stay with us.